Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, taking a look at Notre Dame going on the road and playing an NC State Wolfpack team that is always dangerous in these spots. Really impressed with what they've done. I mean, such an underrated coach and what he's doing with this program. And then on the other side, this Notre Dame team, it feels different having Sam Hartman, who again, as a Wake Forest guy, couldn't be happier for him absolutely crushing it early for Notre Dame. And again, the ceiling for this Notre Dame team, a hell of a lot higher with a quarterback like Sam Hartman. Excited to get into it. Now, before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. The support you guys have shown the boys truly does mean a lot. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. But more importantly, the best part about doing this, hearing from you guys in the comment section. So let us know who you guys are taking. Chop it up there. Dale, I'm going to give you the tee box here. Notre Dame, NC State, how we feeling?
I think college football has kind of got to catch back up to what Notre Dame can be with a really good quarterback, because I think they're still being treated a little bit like what they were last year when the quarterback play there was so bad, and the rest of that team I thought honestly was very good. I just feel like the world maybe isn't ready to admit that this Notre Dame team might be kind of knocking right on the door of a national championship contender.
That's kind of what I'm saying is this is a team that's always a top 10 team in the country with quarterback play that is outside the top 25. And you have one of the best quarterbacks in the country combined with a team that has a really good offensive line with a really good running back group and pass catchers who I think are significantly underrated because the quarterback situation was bad. Dill, I want to start, with Notre Dame on the offensive side of the ball, matching up with an NC State team that historically really, really good in their front seven, stopping the run. I don't want to take too much away from what we saw against UConn, but from what takeaways were, is UConn was able to get the ball going, move the ball a little bit against this NC State team, especially on the ground. It's hard for me to see Notre Dame having struggles doing that against NC State.
I just think this Notre Dame kind of offensive line is building. It has been building for a little while. I mean, led by Joe Alt and Blake Fisher, who both have been playing really since they were freshmen. And obviously had some growing pains at times, especially Blake Fisher, but they've both turned into studs. I mean, Joe Alt's going to be one of the higher draft picks going this year. And then even in the inside with Zeke Correll, who's been playing forever, it feels like, at that center spot. So you've just got a team that I think this offensive line's been kind of building back up. They were young a couple years ago. Now they're kind of all matured, really good players. And I'm looking for this unit to really take over, alongside with an Audric Estime who really runs the style Notre Dame.
Yeah, fits exactly what Notre Dame's trying to do. Joe Alt, my number one tackle in the country. I don't think there's another tackle better than him. That's kind of what I'm seeing is how this Notre Dame offense is so dangerous. You're going to have to commit bodies to the box to stop this rushing attack, right? Really good running back room, really, really good offensive line. Now, historically, teams do that and can maybe stop Notre Dame rushing the football. That being said, Notre Dame couldn't really kind of hurt any teams pushing the ball down the field vertically because the quarterback play just wasn't there. If NC State wants to put guys in the box to stop this run game, I think Sam Hartman is going to be able to get theirs, especially with the playmakers on the outside. I think this is
my big concern for NC State is it didn't feel like they really controlled that line of scrimmage against UConn. It's not, again, the stats are what they are, and Rosa rattled off some big plays, but when I see an NC State team, I expect against UConn, dominating the up front and where they're look like they're just at a way different level. I just didn't really see that. And I think UConn's offensive line might be a little tougher, frankly, than what we give them credit for. But I was a little surprised given how good this front has been and how often these defensive lines have been able to take over games, that they really weren't doing that, at least from what I was watching against you.
That's my biggest concern is NC State struggles. NC State wins 8, 9, 10 games a year because they're better in the trenches. That's how they win games. I don't know if they're better in the trenches against this Notre Dame team. Now, if you are excited about something, I do think that, yes, it was sloppy against UConn. I don't want to just take away one game and write off this NC State offense. Back when Brennan Armstrong was with Virginia, Robert and I was there. This was one of the more potent offenses in the country. If they can get back to that form a little bit, this NC State team is dangerous. You just need to see that because, quite frankly, against UConn, it wasn't quite there.
Yeah, and that's the other part is even up front, they couldn't run the football at all. It's what against UConn, your running backs can't get really anything going. It's Brennan Armstrong led the team by a mile rushing, and that just can't happen because This has to be like led by up front, and I get it. And I might want to come in and throw the ball a little bit more in terms of what he's done in the past. But the way Dave Doran's built this team is to be led inside out. I mean, that's just who he's recruited. That's how they've always done it. And I think for them to not be able to run the ball at all at any point in that game, I get it. Maybe you don't run the ball well for a half, and then you kind of wake up and start rolling. But to spend the whole game really not getting anything, that's what concerns me. It's just NC State team is led by their dogs up front. They've been so good, and I don't know if that's where they're at this year. They've had a lot of attrition too. I don't want to just like dump it, but they've sent a lot of guys to the
that
NFL.
Was the problem is I think last year, and I think NC State fans would agree, like last year felt like their year, and then they lose a lot of guys to the NFL draft, and it's a retooling that you trust Dave Doran to do. I just don't know if it'll happen this early on in the 2023 season. And you look at Notre Dame's defense, like I don't know if there's a group that benefits more from a quarterback transfer coming in than Notre Dame. Like the amount of 3 and outs, the amount of times Notre Dame had to be on the field on defense because that offense just couldn't stay on the field, hurt them. They're a very good group that I think statistically doesn't look as good because their offense kind of stunk. This year, I mean, like you talk about a front seven that plays with their hair on fire. Like that's Notre Dame.
Yeah, and I think this Notre Dame team is led by these linebackers. I think they got 3 of them with Kaiser, Bertrand, and Luafu, who are all just so good. And I think the fact that Kaiser and Bertrand are so solid and let Luafu make a ton of plays is what drives this team. Because Notre Dame, like, he's an impact player. You see him flying around, making a lot of negative plays behind the line. And those are the type of things that, especially against a team in NC State who isn't wildly explosive, I think that's the type of thing that makes it really hard to score points, is when you can have a defense that can, again, hit those big plays and get you off schedule. I just don't know that the wide receivers are there for the NC State team.
That's my biggest concern is, like, I just don't know. Like, Brennan Armstrong, I think, is a very good quarterback. I just don't know if, like, I don't know. Okay. I don't think NC State will be able to run the football. So now Brennan Armstrong's going to have to throw the football. I love Notre Dame's secondary, Benjamin Morrison and company, and I don't really love NC State's wide receivers. And so from looking at this as a matchup standpoint, it seems like Notre Dame is just kind of like, it looks good for Notre Dame. Though I guess that's a nice segue into getting to the pick. Notre Dame coming in 8.5-ish point favorites. Where we looking here?
Yeah, and again, just given, like, obviously, I think the way I've talked about this, you could probably tell I'm leaning Notre Dame. I mean, the one caveat is I don't want to, like, take everything away from one game, because we've seen really good teams play real stinkers early on in the season when they're going down like a couple levels below where they're at, which is certainly what NC State was doing when they had it over to play UConn. So I don't want to, like, again, it's like this line does feel a little low just because I do think Notre Dame is so good. I think the world hasn't quite caught up to, like, again, what I said earlier, that I think they're a national championship contender with Sam Hartman. I think they've been kind of on the fringe of that with quarterback play that's really weak. And now to have him coming in, I think 7.5 points is awfully low.
Yeah, from a matchup standpoint, that's where I am too. Like, and it's a little less that I'm not out on this NC State team. Like, I think they're a good team. It's more like I think Notre Dame's a bona fide top 10 team in the country with Sam Hartman. I think when you look at the matchups, it's like if this NC State team can't win up front, if they're not winning the game in the trenches, like I don't think they're winning the game, and I don't think
NC State, frankly, has just turned over a ton this last year. It's like you look, they sent a lot of guys to the NFL on both sides of the ball, and they're not necessarily that recruiting power. They're a team that develops through their pipeline. So you give up that much to the NFL, and that much came together, and they've been really good for the past 3 or 4 years or whatever it's been, it feels like. And again, just given how much they lost this year and the fact that what you saw against UConn, that's kind of what makes me lean pretty heavily to where Notre Dame's at.
Notre Dame, bucket, the fellas love it. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys again. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.